Hi everyone, and welcome to Creative Chelsea. Starting in January, on January 3rd, we've got a new mini catalog and the celebration begins. And what it is whenever you spend $50, you're gonna get one item from this catalog for free. Now there are some items in this catalog that are free with a purchase of $100. So there will be those two choices, either $50 or $100 in this catalog. And there's just some amazing products. So I'm going to be showing you those for the next couple weeks, and I thought we'd get started today. One of the first products is this Timeless Tulips Stamp Set, and that is in the mini catalog for January through June. And the cards we're going to make today, we're going to start off with a simple card, just using ink, stamps, and paper. And then we're gonna move to a stepped up card. And I'm gonna show you how you can do that. And you can see that they're very similar layouts, but just with some extra supplies, you can really pop it out and make it a really special card. Okay, so I've got all my supplies to make this card, and I just need a card base, and I'm using Pear Pizzazz, and then a piece of Whisper White cardstock. And this is 3 inches by 5 inches. And we're just stamping on this card. And then another piece of cardstock. And this piece is Blushing Bride. Now I'm going to be using Calypso Coral to stamp in, and I just wanted a lighter color to kind of complement, but not the exact color. So let's get started with the process. One of the first things I did was I splattered in the background here. And that's just a really fun technique that you can use, that anybody can use, as long as you've got an ink pad and a paintbrush, and I'm using an aqua painter, and then your cardstock. So let me show you how to do that. So we're actually doing that in the Garden Green, which is just a darker version kind of Pear Pizzazz. So they're kind of in the same color, you know, family. They're both green. So the reason I like the aqua painter is because it has water here in the bladder, and just to kind of, and you can add water at any time when I need it. So I'm just going to squeeze a drop or two into the top of my ink pad. I'm going to fold my paper, and then I'm going to splatter. And I do this by running my brush over the lid of the aqua painter. If you don't have an aqua painter, you can just run it over like a pencil or a pen. Even your finger would work. And you're just going to get it all around. And you can do heavy or light depending on your preference. Okay. And then to clean these, you just need a tissue or paper towel or something to clean that. And then you're going to take your aqua painter and squeeze the water until it runs clear. Okay? So then you let that dry, which won't take very long at all. I'm just gonna wipe up my paper a little bit. And now we can stamp. So we're using photopolymer stamps, so I'm going to be using my paper piercing mat to give it a little extra give when I'm stamping, so I can get a better image. So I've got my Calypso Coral, and I'm going to start with the larger tulip. And I'm just placing that at a little angle in the center. Now I love these stamps because they've got that distinctive imagery, so you can get all different highlights and shadows with just one image. So then I've got my smaller tulip stamps. I'm going to put one on the right, a little lower, and then this tiniest one on the left, kind of in the middle. Next, I've got my 2 stems, and I've just placed them on the opposite sides of one of the H blocks. And we're going to do that in Garden Green. And I'm going to start with my curved, and I'm going to do that for the large tulip. I'm going to grab a scrap piece of paper because this might come off. And what I'm doing is I'm going to line up the wider end of the stem with the base of the tulip. And it's going to come off just slightly. Then I'm going to do another one for this medium-sized tulip. And then I'm going to use the straight stem for the smallest tulip. And next, I'm going to get the two leaves, and these are the skinny leaves, and they kind of work going all different directions. So just go ahead and ink up one. This one has kind of a flat side, and so I'm going to put that flat side up against the stem. And I'm going to try to get some different levels of leaves. So kind of do some up high, and then ink up the other one. Kind of, you can rotate them around and get, you know, kind of crisscross those leaves so you can get a variety of directions. So kind of like that. All right, so the very last stamping we need to do is our greeting. And I thought it would be fun to do a Happy Mother's Day for this one. And I've just got a strip of Whisper White cardstock, and it's just about a 1/2 inch, maybe a little bit wider than that. You can find the dimensions for all my cardstock in the description below. And I'm going to do that in Calypso Coral. So this greeting does come with this stamp set, and it's just a nice Mother's Day greeting. And stamp that in the center. Okay, so our stamping's done, so we can just assemble. So we've got our card base, and then we're going to add our tulips, and I'm going to do that with some dimensionals. And I've got some mini dimensionals, but you could use any size of foam strips or the regular dimensionals. Okay. So then you just put this with an even border along the top, bottom, and right side, so you have more space here on the right. Then we're going to apply this Blushing Bride cardstock, which is slightly larger than our white cardstock we stamped on. And we're just going to apply that at an angle to give some interest and fun. And then our greeting with some dimensionals. And you can put that back on straight, or if you want to do that at an angle as well. I'm just going to try to straighten it out. It's sometimes difficult to tell what's straight and what's not when you've got something that's angled behind it. Okay, so that was a pretty quick and simple card, yet really beautiful, and the stamp set really makes it beautiful because of the different variations of color in that distinctive stamp set. So this stamp set is going to be available starting January 3rd. Actually, I think it's available January 1st, but Sale-a-bration starts January 3rd. So go ahead and get this stamp set. Now, the stamp set does come bundled with a punch that matches. And it matches the larger tulip, and then this, you can either have this be a leaf or part of the tulip. And I'm going to show you today how I used the punch to step up that card and create this one. So let's do that now. So one of the first things we need to do is do something to that background. Now, in the first card I splattered, and so this card I wanted to show you a different technique, and it's just a watercolor wash. So you could do watercolor wash on this previous card as well, and that is totally up to you. Just wanted to give you another technique. So you're going to open up your garden green again, get your aqua painter or paintbrush, and you're going to add some water to your ink. Now I've also already added ink here, right? So I've dropped with my re-inker, 1 or 2 drops of ink. So I've got lots of ink here, and pick up that color, and then you're just going to, so this is not my card base, this is just another piece of cardstock that's in pear pizzazz, and it's 4 inches by 5 1/4, and I'm just going to place a watercolor wash on this cardstock. And I want a variation of color within that, so I don't want it to be all the same. I want to have some dark, some light, some of the regular cardstock showing. So I think I like that. That works for me. And then I'm going to clean my aqua painter again. So squeeze until it runs clear. Okay, so while that dries, we're going to go ahead and move to the next step. And that next step is to get a piece of paper, and we're going to cut out with the stitch nested labeled dies the largest die, which is, for me, it's number 8 because I label mine, and so it goes from the smallest, which is 1, to 8. And so I'm just going to go ahead and go to my big shot, and I'm going to cut this out with this die. All right, so I've cut this out. And one of the things I love about these dies is the little stitching it puts along the edge. It's so pretty. All right, so get your paper piercing mat and your paper and your inks. And for this card, I used a purple. This is a rich raspberry, and I wanted to offer another color choice. And so I brought in the Highland Heather purple. And so this is a more pale purple, so we're gonna give this one a try. And I do need to clean all my stamps, so I'm gonna pause this and come back after I do that. All right, so they're all clean. And what I'm going to do is I'm gonna do the same. I'm going to start with the larger stamp and ink it up. And then at a slight angle at the top, stamp it. And then do the same with the medium. And this one's going to come off slightly. And then the small. Okay. So on a scrap piece of paper, we're going to stamp the ones we're going to punch. And I'm going to start with the large flower. And I'm just going to stamp that at the bottom. And then I'm going to punch it. Now this double punch is really fun, and I'm going to show you later on another video how you can get both images punched at the same time. But for now, we're going to keep this a little simple, and we're just going to punch out the image. I love punches for images. It just makes things super easy and fast. And then we're going to get the stamp that matches the punch, the next punch. Well, you'll see it matches. There we go. You tell that it matches. So we're now going to stamp that and punch one of those out. Okay. All right, so you'll notice on my card that I have 2 of those, but we only have 1 stamp and 1 punch for the one in going that direction. So I can't flip it, you know, because there's no punch or stamp for it. So I'm going to show you a trick to get a reverse image and how to punch it. And there's lots of different ways to do it, and I'm going to actually show you another way with another video coming up in a couple weeks, but this is just a really fast and simple way to do it, which sometimes is what we want, right? Especially when we don't have certain tools. So let's do that. So the way I do this is I punch one of the punches, and you'll notice there's no stamp. Okay, then I'm going to flip it to the other side. So this was the way it was originally punched, like this, and now we're going to flip it so that's going to be reversed. The next thing I need to do is clean my large tulip stamp. And then I'm going to actually remove it and flip it over so that the front is actually on the block and the back is facing me. And this gives me a flat surface for this technique, which is what I need. Next, I'm going to take the stamp that matches this punch. I'm going to ink it up, and I'm actually going to stamp it on the back of this tulip. Okay, so I don't know if you can tell, but right there is the stamp. Can you see that stamped image on the back of the tulip? All right, so then we're going to stamp it. So this can be tricky, especially with a light color like this purple that I chose. So it's a little bit off because I couldn't see it perfectly, but that's going to be okay. Or I could just redo it depending on how I feel about it. There we go. I think it's okay. So you'll see how we now have a reversed image on a reversed punch. And so that was pretty fast and easy, and it didn't require any other tools than what we already had. So we're going to go ahead and add those to our card in a minute. So let's find, here it is. So we go back to our original images. We're going to stamp the stems. And we're just going to do the same for the same stems for the ones we did previously. So the large curved one on the large stamp, and then the curved one for the medium, and then the straight one for the small. There we go. And now we're just going to add some leaves. And you can kind of have these leaves, since we're not going as far because we've kind of chopped it down a little bit, they can kind of come at some different angles. There we go. Okay, so we've got our stamped image. We've got our watercolor wash, which is drying. We've got the punched flower. Let's do our greeting next. Okay, so I've got a piece of purple posy cardstock, and it's the same size as the Blushing Bride one we used in the previous card. And then I've got a small strip that we're going to stamp on. And we're stamping with the Highland Heather. And I think I'm just going to make this a birthday card. So I've just got, I think this is a 1/2 inch strip. And I'm just stamping happy birthday. And this greeting also is in the stamp set. And then I wanted to add, just to step it up one more time, to add some layers. And so this is a new label punch that is in the January mini catalog. And so I wanted to use that. So I've got a piece of Highland Heather cardstock that we're going to use to kind of help step this card up. Okay. So just really quickly, I'm going to walk you through how I step up a card. So you'll notice that this simple card still looks pretty good. And the reason for that is because of layers. And so you've got your card base, you've got your stamped image is popped up with some dimensionals to show that it's a layer. And then you've got layered cardstock here around the greeting. And so that's a really big key factor in making your simple cards look great, is with layers. So I'm adding a lot of layers to this card as well. I've got my card base, which we didn't do anything to, but we're adding another layer of cardstock with this Watercolor Wash background. And that just gets centered on your card base. And then we're going to have our layer of our stamped images, and that's going to pop up. But before I do that, I'm going to add some of this Crinkled Seam Binding Ribbon. And this is another new product from the January mini catalog. And it will be available as well starting in January. And I'm just going to tie a ribbon with it. And one of my tricks is, I know my ribbon's going to come here on the right, and so I've lined up my two ribbon ends and I just pull it across, because now they're both even, because that's where I want that to be. So that's just a trick. And then I always tie a knot. Unless my ribbon is super fat, because then it's just the knot is too much. But for something like this. And this crinkle ribbon is so pretty. It has that little crinkle factor, and so you kind of want like a big bow to kind of show off that texture. And this, I bet, would dye really easily. I'm gonna have to try that for another card, so that you could get lots of different colors with it. Okay, so that's really beautiful, and adding accessories like that really helps step up your cards. So let's go ahead and apply this with dimensionals. All right, so again, we're putting that near the right side and kind of trying to have even top and bottom, and then even on that side, and most of the space is left on the left. So let's add our layers for our flower. Now I do this a little different so that you can get a different feeling. So I'm going to put snail at the bottom, and that's going to be right up against the cardstock, and then I'm just going to add one little dot to the top. So that's going to give this a feeling that it's coming off the paper. So it's right here and then popping up there. And I'm going to do the same with the petals. And this is the one that goes on the right that we did as a reverse image. And I'm just going to bring it out just a little bit, so it's a little bit wider of a tulip than the original. And the same, just a little bit wider. So it's stuck down there at the bottom, nice and flat, and then we've got some dimensional here at the top. Okay, so now we're going to add some layers. This one's just going to go straight on, and I'm bringing it off my card slightly, just so that it lines up with the edge of the cardstock that I added to the front. And I want my ribbon to just kind of go right up over that at the base. And then this card, or this cardstock, it matches the stamped images, and we're going to just apply this with some snail as well, right to the center of that strip. And then our greeting's going to get popped up with some dimensionals. And that's just going to go right in the center. It's just slightly wider than that tag. And so it kind of just brings everything together. Maybe I'll pop that underneath so we can see that pretty tag shape there. Okay. So then the very last thing would be some sequins to just add a little bling. And I'm using these just basic adhesive backed sequins, and they come in some soft colors. And this one I think is kind of like a smoky gray color, and we've got the pear pizzazz we can match. And we have sea foam, I think, and some petal pink and white. So on my original card, I used some of the gray ones, and I think on this card I'm going to use some of the green pear pizzazz ones. And you can just place these wherever you'd like. They can go on by your stamped images or off on the green. I've seen people are kind of trending to put them under some layers, just kind of as they're peeking out from underneath there. So that is our card. That's our stepped up card. And this is in Highland Heather, just to give you some color options. This is in Rich Razzleberry. Then we've got Calypso Coral, and this pretty one is in Real Red. And so it's just kind of fun to see how those different colors look with that beautiful Timeless Tulips Stamp Set. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe, like, and share. Visit creativechelsea.com for a free tutorial of this project and to purchase the supplies needed. Have a creative day! Bye!